Dom Fusco, welcome back. Second time on the show here in Austin now. We were virtual our first time back in 2022, so welcome back.
In person's always better, man.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a whole experience, you know? Like, when you get to do it in person, it's so much more than, okay, you log on, you small talk for 2 minutes, you hit go, you record the podcast, and then it's like, all right, talk to you probably never, like, for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, being able to be down here, you know, we've got to hang out a bunch over the past couple of months, and being able to get a workout in this morning, and then podcasts. It's just like, it's a whole experience. So I feel like you develop a deeper connection and a deeper relationship to people when you're able to like create that feeling, versus like it's hard to create that feeling. You can ask good questions, but you can't like cultivate an environment and a feeling through virtual.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we connected back in like the fall of 2022 on Instagram. I know you're a humble guy. You're not like looking at the numbers, but like right now, crushing on Instagram, got like 70,000 followers, reaching millions of people. Back then, I don't know what the exact number was, but that was like when you first started posting more. Definitely wasn't 70,000 followers. So the growth has been incredible, and it's very cool to see, you know, you take step by step over those months and last 2 years of just growing your personal brand, growing your true passion. So what has that experience been like, starting in Pennsylvania and now coming down to Austin?
Dude, well, one, it's just crazy to think back then. I'm like, man, why did you want to interview me back then? Like, what was I doing at that point, you know? At that point, like, that was probably like late summer 2022, somewhere around there. And I was just starting to get into like really go hard in like the health and wellness niche, I guess you could say. But I didn't really have a niche. It was just like I was posting like health and fitness content for up until that point. It had been like 2 years of semi-consistent posting, starting out as just a podcast page. So like my current Instagram that I have now used to be called the Days with Dom podcast.
Yeah.
Because that was what the podcast was called up until I switched it after episode 50. So I did like a year straight from 2020 to 2021. Then I took a break before rebranding to Pure Ambition. But I was posting like strictly podcasts. I was doing the Gary Vee during COVID. Like I would record a podcast with somebody, and then I would spend all day like cutting up the clips on my phone through like 3 different apps. I didn't even know how to like auto generate captions. So I was like typing out everything the person would say. Bro, it would take me like 3 hours to make a clip. And I was making like I would be on my phone for like 9 hours a day, just like doing that. Grinding. And then I had my personal Instagram page, which has just been the page I always have. That's still active, but I haven't posted on that since 2020. And so eventually I transitioned that into just my life. It was more than just podcasting. I wanted to post and document more of my journey, more about my life, because I saw people were doing that. It wasn't like the term like influencer wasn't really like a thing, nor did I ever think I would be considered that. I like the term like impactor over like influencer. I think the true people of influence are guys like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan or Andrew Huberman or like Dr. Rhonda Patrick or you know, Tulsi Gabbard, like these people who are doing really, really amazing. I mean, the list goes on, but those are like the true people of influence. And I think, you know, I'm just trying to impact people. That's my ultimate goal. Yeah. But to answer your question, it's a long-winded question, but that was right around the time where I started training for my first marathon. And I ran the Philly Marathon in 2022. And why did I decide to do that in the first place? Like, I was sitting there like 6-7 months removed from college, and my identity had been wrapped up in being a college football player. And so that's like a lot of the content that I was creating after I got my personal training certification, nutrition coaching certification, took a gap semester in college, did all that stuff. And it was really easy to find what to post and reach a certain audience because I knew exactly who I was trying to reach.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to post like fitness content. And it was a lot harder because I didn't know who I was trying to reach. I was just putting stuff out there. And it's funny, I went back and looked at all that content recently, and I'm like, dude, I can't believe I put this out there on the internet. Like, this is so bad. But you're just building reps. You're just getting reps. And I knew that I loved to create, even though nobody was watching. But again, like, I was reaching really, really I was trying to cast a wide net and I was just missing. I started training for a marathon because I needed to push myself and I needed something to train for, honestly. I needed a goal to pursue. Because when I was training for football, it's like, all right, I want to be an All-American. I want to be first team all conference. I want to win a conference championship. I have all these tangible goals that I'm working towards. And like, I know the steps that I need to take on a given day. It's not guaranteed that I'm going to get them, but like I can at least I can't control the outcome, but I can control the inputs of what I'm doing. And training for a marathon again kind of gave me that spark that I needed back when I played football. It was like I was dialed in on like fitness and nutrition and sleep and programming, and everything was like, okay, I have this date where I'm going to run this thing, and I have this time that I want to reach. I have something to work towards, and I'm a beginner again.
Yep.
I'm like a white belt again, right? Like I love the term from Tim Ferriss. He says like he's a eternal blue belt, where he's always learning. He's always trying to level up, and I really took that approach, not knowingly, but I was just documenting and sharing what I was doing, and I think it was just like perfect timing of the running creation, like people creating content online in the running space was like, it hadn't yet like started booming.
Yeah.
And I think I just it was like kind of just the right time. Like I started creating the right thing at the right time, and it resonated with a lot of people because I'm this, college kid trying to be a personal trainer. Also like co-founder of a startup, like just trying to figure it out. And like in my posts, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing, but like, here's what I did. And oh man, I completely messed up and had to run off the trail and take a crap in the woods because I ate a bowl of yogurt before I went running. Like just like all this stupid stuff. But like, I'm being honest. And I think that honesty and authenticity really resonated with people. And, I just realized like, okay, like content creation is also just like fitness, and you can look at it like just like playing football. Like you can watch the film, you can assess it. Okay, what did I do well in this clip? What can I maybe improve on? What are the people in my audience saying? Like, what are they asking for? I was honestly just taking questions that people were getting, that I was getting through my like inbox or text or email or whatever. I was just turning that into posts. Yep. And it became very, like, I didn't really have to think about what I was doing because I would just sit down at the end of the week and I'll be like, all right, what content do I want to create? It's like, I'll just go through my DMs and just see like, hey, what's a good warm up for runners? Like, what should I be eating after I run? Like I was just doing all of this stuff, and it wasn't anything that anybody hadn't done before, but it was the way that I presented it. Yeah. And I think that's really key to remember in anything. Like there's always room for like quality, novelty, and just like authenticity. Like if you have any of those three or like all three of them, like it doesn't matter if you're starting a clothing company or a water bottle company or a video production. It's like people are attracted to you, not necessarily just like the thing that you do. Because there's plenty of other creators out there who are doing the same thing, but it was just me being authentic and real and sharing my wins, my losses. And I just continued down that path of, it was less creation and just more documentation. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great way for somebody who's just starting anything, whether it doesn't have to be like content creation, but it can be like a business. Like we're building a startup, and I was just documenting like that too. So I was running the social media for our startup, and then I was also doing my own social media. So I was just getting, every day I was just getting so many reps. And like anything, it's just slow growth. Like I've never really had anything like go viral. Like I've had a couple reels hit like, 1 million, 2 million, couple 100,000, like whatever. But you see a lot of creators or people today who they'll have like one or like they'll have some stuff go viral. They'll gain a ton of followers. Mm-hmm. You get an insane dopamine rush. And then, like a drug addict, it hits you hard. Yeah. And then you're always chasing that high. You're always chasing that like virality. And again, I never thought, like 2 years ago when we were talking, I never thought I never thought I would be in the position that I'm in right now. I'm still the co-founder of a startup, which UpSpace, which is a platform. It's a community building platform for health and wellness. Ultimately, what we're building with that is think like Spotify, but for health, right? So one of your savage workouts or, your routines or, breath work, meditation, recipe, whatever, you'll be able to go and find that on there. Yoga flows, all that. It's going to be awesome. Right now, we actually just launched our second app called Squat Up, which is a social accountability tool that helps you build healthy habits and do it with a friend and make it fun. So we've really, in 2 months, we had the idea, designed it, built it, launched it on the App Store. People are using it. It's like, wow, we spent 3 years doing this one thing that we thought was going to be like transcendent. And we pivoted in 2 months, have already like made more progress, not made more progress, but we've had more adoption on that. So that's just to say, like, you could have this plan for yourself and your life and the trajectory of where you want to go. And then all of a sudden, oh, maybe I got to pivot.
Yeah.
And maybe I got to go a different direction. And it's going to be challenging. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be a little bit difficult. I've had this multiple times in my life, like over the past couple of years. I have my plan. I'm doing my thing, and it's going well. And all of a sudden, like, boom, man, something happens, and you got to work through it, and you got to pivot. It's like you don't have to go 100 as fast as you were going before, but like just don't stop. You just don't quit. And I think the number one reason why my content has resonated with people has just been my authenticity. Like, I try to share my losses more than I try to share my wins. Like, I try to share those struggles because we live in a culture where, like, social media, everybody's on social media for the most part. And what are we doing? 99.9% of people are not creating, they're consuming.
For sure.
And when you're constantly consuming, you're conditioning your brain to compare yourself to others. And I've fallen into that trap myself. You scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and it's just people highlighting the things that they're doing in life. And it's very rare that you come across somebody that's like, oh, this guy just took a fat L. And he's going to talk about it. But there's more lessons to be learned there. And I think the main reason where I've gotten to where I was to where I am now, one, has just been consistency. And I truly love what I do. Like, I love that I get to wake up every day and look at a blank piece of paper or a blank computer screen and like, what can I make?
Yeah.
Because for me, it starts with either my like sketchbook, and I got all these colorful pencils and stuff where I like to just like doodle and draw and, just mind map and do all these fun things. And that'll just like spur something. Or I just start writing, and then like something comes to me, and then I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. And then I'm writing out hooks, and then I'm writing the shot list, like, and then I'm filming and editing and posting, and it's just a process. But I love that I live in a time right now. There's been no other time in humanity where I can reach people. I can reach millions of people with just my phone, literally taking out my phone, pressing record, saying what's on my mind, and hitting publish. And that could positively impact somebody's life. And I'm big on like the domino effect of, just reaching one person knocks over another domino, and that just creates this just long line of people just helping people. And that's what it's all about, man. It's not about the vanity metrics. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the monthly reach. It's not about the followers. Like, it's not about any of that. And do I think about that stuff? Absolutely. Because when like, you look at your analytics and everything's in the red and everything's down, or it's like, wow, I've net lost followers every day this week. It's like, am I doing something wrong? But I had to like change my mindset, whereas like, I'm doing things a lot differently than I was 2 years ago, a year ago, 3 months ago, a month ago. And it's like weaning out the people who aren't supposed to be there and deepening that connection with the audience that you are supposed to have. So it's a lot of, there's growing pains with everything, but it was a very long-winded answer. And I think I danced around the question of
That's beautiful.
Of, what has my experience been like moving from Pennsylvania to Austin? It's been amazing, exhilarating, fun, hard. It's a roller coaster. But just being around others who are on a similar journey and just trying to become a better version of themselves, pour back into others, and ultimately just create a thriving like society. It's like the virus effect, right? Like a virus starts in one small area and then like it slowly grows out from there. And I feel like we have that here in Austin
For sure.
with impactors, and it you don't have to be a creator. You can be anybody just trying to make this world a better place. And I feel like we have that like virus effect right now, but it's going to continue to spread in a good way. Mm-hmm. In a good way.
I love that. And you mentioned you love what you do. We can see it. Like you, the content, the way you live, the way you show up, like you can see the passion, the drive. So I appreciate that, because that's a good thing for everyone to strive for. And there's a saying out there, don't compare your day 1 to someone's day 100. I think you're a great example of that, because you're talking about your process of content creation, starting a business, going to where you want to be. If you're stuck in the, oh, I want to get to this level, I'm comparing myself to this huge fitness influencer or a business owner, it's hard to take that first step because you feel so far away. And even like I mentioned to you several weeks ago, when I was starting more about with my content, 2 of my mentors that Joe and Chase, shout out to them, like both of them mentioned, this is where Dom was a couple years ago. And they're like, just follow his tracks. And for me, it's like, I can't compare myself to Dom and where he is, but I know where he started. And I know the steps it takes to get to where you are. You mentioned about creating the clips on your podcast and just, sit at home for hours, cutting up those clips. And I think there's so much of a level of respect for better work once you go through the mundane of, I'm going to put together a masterpiece that might get 100 views. It doesn't get the reach.
I'm lucky.
Yeah. And you build that into what you have now, and you can outsource things. And now you know the quality of work and the time that goes into it. What did you learn from that process of, I'm sitting at home on my phone, to now I have a team working with me, I am more creative myself, and I'm making a bigger impact?
One, like you have to go through that season of just doing everything. Like everybody wants to be quick to like delegate. And it's like, oh, I'm trying to delegate and, take things off your plate and do this, that, and the other. But then you become more of a manager.
Yeah.
Right. So like you're doing more work and it's like less of what you actually want to be doing. Like I was doing up until a few months ago, I guess I've had a podcast editor for about a little over a year now. But up until then, like I was doing everything myself, from posting on posting an Instagram reel, like TikTok, YouTube short, every single day, posting a podcast, sometimes 2 every week, doing, soup to nuts, doing everything there. I was doing like YouTube vlogs and doing everything soup to nuts there. And it was a freaking grind, man. It was an absolute grind. But I learned it taught me so many skills. Like I learned how to shoot. I learned how to edit. I learned how to write copy. I learned how to speak. I learned how to do so many things that I wouldn't have learned unless I just put myself into the fire, right? And like I've learned more just by doing things than any class I took in college. Like, and granted, I had some amazing professors. I was lucky to go to a liberal arts school where I was able to take a lot of different classes, which really opened my mind up and helped me learn to critically think a lot more. But I learned during that time where, like I made a post 2 days ago, I made $25,000 my first year out of college. So when you and I were talking, I was making nothing.
Yeah.
And I was living at my mom's house. So she was like, I believe in what you're trying to do here. So like she was helping me out, letting me live at home. And, I didn't have a lot of expenses. I kept my expenses very low, and I was still investing into myself in any way I could. It was like, okay, there's going to be a retreat going on in Austin. Like this is going to hurt, but like, I'm going to spend the money on it because like, I trust that, God's going to put the right people in my life and like just guide me on this path. And again, I didn't make any money through social media till like November of 2022.
Wow.
So almost 3 years into creating, that was never my goal. Like I didn't really know what I was trying to do. Like I took like I said, $25,000, co-founder of a startup. I was taking very little because we were taking a little bit of money from friends and family and angel investors, but we had to deploy that money to like our developers who were actually building the technology. Mm-hmm. So my other two co-founders and I, like, we took very, very small salaries, and I was able to do that because I was living at home. And dude, like that back against the wall, like I gotta do something, I gotta keep moving forward mentality was so motivating for me, because like I knew I had to keep my foot on the gas at all times. And granted, there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of like feelings of depression, and it's not, those things aren't like diagnosed, like I don't think they're like disease. People are like, oh, like I have depression, I have anxiety. It's like there's probably something there, like it's most likely a lack of purpose or like direction or vision, right? So it's like when I felt like I didn't have direction, I also felt like I didn't have purpose, and that's when I felt the most anxious and depressed. Mm-hmm. But there's a great book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and it's just like showing up and beating resistance every day. And that's what I did. I just kept creating content every day, even when nobody was watching, because I knew that was something I wanted to do, and that was something I loved. And it was just like having blind faith and blind trust that it was all going to work out. A couple months later, I post one reel, 7 things to do to keep your knees healthy. Mm-hmm. If you're a runner or not. Very long hook. I wouldn't go that long with a hook right now. But I got like 1 million plays in like a couple days, and I went from like 2,500 followers to like almost 5,000 followers in like 2 weeks. And I was like, whoa. And then I just like caught the algorithm, and like, so it took me 2.5 years to get to like almost 2.5 years to get to 3,000 followers.
Wow.
And then it took me like 2 months to go from 3,000 to 10,000, and then from 10,000 to 70 something, whatever I have right now, like another year and a half. So it's just been like, it's just like the compounding effect. Mm-hmm. But what do? It's like you just keep doing it consistently, right? It's like, like do things like good every day, and don't try to be great like sporadically. And I say this as having like, man, I didn't post yesterday, and I'm like pissed at myself because like some things came up and I didn't have it ready. But like, it is what it is. I'm also at a point right now where like I'm gonna post today, mm-hmm. and I don't want to compromise like value that's like in the post for like trying to rush something out there. But like during that time period, I also learned that like challenge yourself to do things that, and like stay consistent. Like I did I did a 90 days of growth. It was called 90 days of growth when I was that was like 2022 also. Like I challenged myself to like do like a daily vlog every day and just talk about like my struggles that I was having in life. And that taught me to build the muscle of just showing up every day. And this just like, it applies to all areas of life. Like, and I trace it all back to one, like playing football, where I knew that like I couldn't control the outcome, but I knew that if I just showed up and did the inputs every day, things would eventually start to,
they'll fall into place.
Yeah, they'll fall into place, right? So I've taken that into business, into content, which content is, it is business too, mm-hmm. but like content creation, business with Squad Up, my faith, and, really just diving into that. And it's like, okay, if I want to develop a deeper connection and relationship with God, like I have to sweat for it, just like I do in the gym, mm-hmm. right? Like I'm not just gonna get those like spiritual gains if I'm just spending 5 minutes a day. Like I can't do that. Even like with friendships, being especially intentional with like doing things like this, like, dude, it applies to everything in life. Like it's just having intention and the patience to let things grow, and just trust that if you truly follow your heart and let your gut feelings lead you, you're going to end up in the right place. But it's just, it's not going to be linear. Just like growth is not linear. It's like a freaking pinball machine. But eventually you're going to get into that little slot where you were supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think I restart the game again and all keeps going. But yeah, man, I just learned a lot about, and I'm all over the place, but I just get fired up about this. And just knowing that in that period of my life, I'm 22, 23 years old. If I fall flat on my face, I still have a college degree. Like I went to school for business and economics. Like I have this resume of like, just Google my name and you can see like, hey, this is what I've created. You know, the blogs that I'm not like tooting my own horn here, but it's like, hey, I wrote an article like that was featured in this brand's blog, or I wrote this blog myself, or I've published, this is my YouTube channel, and I've grown my Instagram, and I know how to edit. Like I developed all these skills, and I knew that Gary Vee, like he's the reason I started creating content. Like I could do this and fail at 30 and still be fine.
Yeah.
Like because there's so many lessons along the way. You don't really fail. You just take a lesson from it. So I just knew that. And I try to get across to people now is like, you're 24, 25 years old. Like just go for it. Like just go for it, because as long as you have faith, as long as you have ambition, and as long as you're just trusting your gut, it will never lead you astray.
I love that. That's great advice right there. And I think most people need to listen to that. Like they need that encouragement of just taking the leap towards something. And you've experienced so much growth because you've been committed to yourself. And hearing you tell your story time after time again, it's so beneficial to hear because you're figuring things out. And I know you're not even close to where you want to be, but you're involved in the process, and you love the process day to day, and you're continuing to grow and build relationships and find success. What does success mean to you right now? How do you define it?
Oh man, already. Honestly, success right now means completely surrendering to the will of God and doing my best to let Him break through. Surrendering to the will of God and just pursuing that with everything I have, with my whole entire being. Because success to me doesn't mean a certain follower count. It doesn't mean a view count. It doesn't mean a subscriber count. It doesn't mean a dollar amount in my bank account. It doesn't mean the square footage on my house, or how fast my car can go. That's not success to me at all. Success to me is getting to the end of my life and God telling me, well done, good and faithful servant. Like, dude, I almost lost my life last year. And I believe the only reason I'm still here is because like God has a mission for my life. And I think He has a mission for everybody's life, and not everybody has to go through that experience that I did to get to that next version of themselves, that God wanted them to be. But I did, and people say, oh, I'm sorry. So sorry that happened to you. I'm like, I'm not, because I'm not the same person that I was. And I feel so much more aligned with the mission for my life. And it's like, if I don't just trust and surrender every single day, first thing I do in the morning is like, I go for a walk and I just lift my hands in the air and I just say like, I'm so grateful that I even get to do this, that I even get another chance to like walk these streets and connect with these people and do what I get to do. If I don't start my day with God, man, it's a bummer of a day.
Yeah.
It is a freaking bummer of a day. And so success to me just means like completely surrendering to God's will and pursuing what He puts on my heart with everything that I have.
I love that. That's beautiful. 2 years ago, you mentioned your definition of success was progress, and also that failure is inevitable, but continuing to trust the process and push forward. Now your answer is more faith-based. I know this is a journey you've been going on and very committed to. How has that changed your life? We're going to get into the cardiac arrest in a second, but what now has changed in your life that this is my true path, and this is why success is now going to be inevitable?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the faith. My family was Catholic. I went to church every Sunday. I went to Catholic school, or Catholic high school. But when I got to college, I kind of just fell out of it, and it just never really resonated with me. Like, I always believed that there was a God, but I don't know. I was just like, man, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff in the Bible here. Like, that's no fun. Like, I don't want to follow all these rules, and these nuns are mean, and like, I'm just not really about that.
You have questions.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm a kid. Like, it's not like the cool thing to do, right? And I'm driving back from the Jersey Shore in like summer of 2022, and I start crying, man. And I'm like, why do I feel so like empty? Why do I feel so unfulfilled when I get to do all these like great things? Like, I'm building a startup, and I'm like trying to start my own business, like all these like things that are like praised online, and everybody's like, yo, embrace the hustle, embrace the grind. Like, yes, do that, but man, it's hard. And I was listening to a podcast. It was Nick Bare and Christian Huff, and I didn't know they were going to talk about faith. I didn't know who Christian Huff was at the time. It was called 4-8 Men, from Timothy 4 verse 8. And him and Nick started talking about their faith, and I was like, I started crying even more. I was like, this is what has been missing from my life, has been a relationship with God, a connection with Jesus. And the next day, like, I went to church for the first time in, like a year and a half, like a Christian church, not denominational. I just immediately like felt the Holy Spirit there. And it just opened up a lot of like I just felt like this feeling of like fulfillment and like contentment, like everything was going to be okay. A couple weeks later, I got baptized spontaneously. The pastor of the church was like, we're going to offer these today. And he's like, if you feel called to do this, to give your life to Christ, like, now's your chance. And I was like, I didn't even think twice. Just next thing I know, I'm in the back room and I'm talking to somebody. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
And from that day, my life has not been the same. And I just know it's almost like having like imagine you're walking across the Grand Canyon on a tightrope, and it's windy. You're probably gonna fall. You fall. You make some progress. You get knocked off. Bird flies into you. You fall.
Or we just did that.
Yeah.
Sled push.
Yeah. Or
front squats.
Exactly. And it's like a giant trampoline that you bounce off of, and you go right back up onto the tightrope. And you might get knocked off again and again and again and again. But you're always going to pop back up onto that rope. And eventually, you're going to get to the other side. I know that in my life, I can be like, I can take bold action, and I can have more courage to go out and just do the things that are on my heart and live boldly, because I know that I have this safety net, this like trampoline under me, these hands that are going to catch me and lift me back up no matter what. Like, God is always there, and nothing in life that I do, business, relationships, finance, like content, like fitness, none of it means anything like if I don't have a relationship with God. Like, nothing else matters, because having a connection with the divine and truly feeling like God's presence and hearing him speak to you is something that's become so real to me that it's happened to me on the plane last week, a couple days ago. And I felt God talking to me so vividly that I almost puked.
Really?
Like, it was so real that I almost threw up. I was like shaking. I was like, what the heck is going on? Take some deep breaths. Like, okay, like, this is God talking to me. And it's been like almost 2 years of really just pursuing my faith. Whereas like that was like the first time in my life, like I truly felt or heard God speaking to me. It's kind of just like going to the gym. It's like you think you keep showing up every day. It's like, man, am I ever going to see the results? Am I ever going to lose the weight? Am I ever going to gain the muscle, right? Like you're building that business. Am I ever going to get that first client? Am I ever going to, you know, close my first deal? Am I ever going to get whatever? It'll happen, but you have to have that blind faith and that blind trust. And I just, before I start working every day, before I do anything, I just thank God for the opportunity to do it and ask him for help and ask him for guidance. And just knowing that I have somebody alongside me at all times for whatever I need feels like a cheat code in life.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Just surrendering again. There it is.
It's the word.
Yeah. It's a good theme right there.
Yeah.
I would imagine one of your biggest spiritual experiences was August of last year when you quite literally died for a moment, right? You go into cardiac arrest, you're trying to PR on the mile, and you end up in the hospital for almost a week. Talk us through what happened on that track into the hospital and what that whole experience was.
One, I did PR.
Let's go.
I guess the first time ever, my PR was like a 6-minute mile. And then I ran so much. I've been doing so much running, but I hadn't really ever like, all right, I'm going to go test my mile. Yeah. So I go out to test my mile and I'm running like, dude, there's just some savages down here. Like I'm out there with 3 of my buddies and, all just really good athletes, like high rocks competitors, like CrossFit athletes, just like really, really with it. And
yeah,
I'm in shape, I'm fit, but I'm also like, I'm the biggest guy there. I was like at the time, like 190 pounds. And my buddy Bray, we were pacing each other. He's, significantly like leaner than I am. And he's ran like a 5:06 and timed his mile every couple of months. And he'd been working on that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get out here and rip it. Mm-hmm. We go out and I'm with him. We're at like a 5-minute pace for the first like 3/4 of a mile. Mm-hmm. And then on the third lap, I just started to hit the wall, yeah. Right? And I ended up running a 5:15.
Nice.
According to my watch, it was a 5:06, but we'll see. According to that, it was 5:15. Anyway, somewhere in the middle. 5:09.
Yeah.
5:10.
That's fair.
But yeah, the craziest part of that is I don't remember any of it. A couple minutes after I finished the run, so it wasn't during the run. Like a lot of people felt like I was just running and I just dropped on the track. I finished the mile and I was huffing and puffing and panting, and I walked over to the side of the track and was breathing heavy as like anybody who just like did an all out mile in the 90 degree 100% humidity August Austin sun heat. But after a couple minutes, like I dropped down to all fours and was still struggling to catch my breath, and I wasn't being responsive. Like I couldn't talk to my friends who were like trying to check on me. And then they came over, and then all of a sudden, I just like laid on my stomach with like my head down. I was still breathing, but again, wasn't being responsive. And yeah, it was crazy. So I started like to have like a mini seizure on the ground, and so my friend, our mutual friend Harry, who was there, he calls the ambulance. And they start going into CPR on me, my friend Gus, who was there. And then there was actually a firefighter on the track that day who, just by the grace of God, happened to be there. I still, if you're listening to this, firefighter, I still I gotta know who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously.
We need dinner or something.
Yeah, come on. let me buy you a steak. I owe you my life. So they start doing CPR on me, but like very quick, like soon after, like I come to and I pop up and I'm responsive for the first time, and like I'm talking to them. I'm like, no, guys, I'm good. Harry, like, don't call the ambulance, I'm good. And they had me sitting up, and like, because I couldn't really like get up under my own power. And then all of a sudden, like, I go down again, and this time like very like intense seizure, foaming out the mouth, body went purple. and completely stopped breathing and was flatline dead for, I actually thought it was 90 seconds up until recently. Like, was talking with Gus and he was like, no, it was like 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
And, after like the 2-minute mark, it's very unlikely that you're going to come out of it with without brain damage, if you even live.
Yeah.
9 out of crazy stat, like I just found recently, it's like 9 out of 10 people who suffer a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital die. And of that 10% who live, like a majority will have some sort of brain damage. And I'm sitting here with you 8 months later, and we just smashed a workout. Like, I feel the best I've felt, like, even before like this happened. But to kind of go back, it was like every second counted. They were alternating CPR, Gus and this firefighter, on me. The ambulance luckily came very quickly. They got my pulse back, but weren't able, like, I wasn't breathing under my own power. So they get me in the ambulance, immediately like put me on the ventilator. I'm still not breathing under my own power, rushed me to the hospital. And I'm in the ICU on the ventilator for 24 hours. Harry gets into my phone, calls my mom. Luckily, they had met before when at the gym when I had moved down here to Austin. So she at least knew it better to get a call from him than somebody else.
Yeah.
But it was from my phone, so she thought I was calling her. Imagine getting that call.
Mm-hmm.
So she immediately, does everything she can to get on a flight down to Austin, and she eventually like missed the one flight. Like, other one had a delay and a layover, and finally gets there at like 11 p.m. that night. I'm still not breathing under my own power, and that was the first time where I like made any sort of movement. It was like when my mom walked in the room, which is like crazy, and my friends who were there with me for like all 24 hours until I woke up, like, just, God, I love those guys to death. So grateful for them. They said like when my mom walked into the room, it was the first time where I changed my like demeanor. I looked like, they said I looked agitated throughout the whole day, and then there's like a calming sense over me. By that point, they knew that like I was most likely going to be okay, but like, again, nothing's guaranteed. I still wasn't breathing under my own power. They didn't know how long I was going to be in a coma for. I finally wake up, or am able to breathe under my own power the next morning. So after like 24 hours on the ventilator, and I wake up, and I don't really remember anything from that day. I just remember, coming off of all the morphine and, fentanyl and things that saved my life. And like, people are just coming in and telling me what happened. And I'm just like, I don't remember much that day, but I just remember I couldn't stop crying. And I couldn't stop crying because like, I just felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude for the people that I had in my life. And I had gone to Thrive church down here 2 weeks before for the first time, and they come with like a whole squad to the hospital, like very shortly after I woke up, and I'm like, I don't even really know these people.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, that's just God's work right there. And people were telling me like, there's a reason, like you're still here. Like, there's a mission for your life. And versus feeling like this victim, having this victim mindset, this victim mentality of, man, why did this happen to me? I had all these things coming up, and like, who am I now? Like what am I even gonna do? I don't even know. I don't know when I'm gonna get out of this hospital. I don't know why this happened. Like, I don't know what the future holds for me. I didn't feel any sense of like urgency to know anything. I just was like, thank you God that I'm still here, and like, I owe my life to you. And since then, it's just been a continued search of just like, what is like why was I saved? You know, why am I still here? I know there's a purpose. And my connection with God has deepened. You know, I know a lot of people who unfortunately, like, tough times happen to them or somebody in their lives, it turns them away. But I truly believe that this happened for me, not to me, so that I can use my story as a testimony to inspire others.
Yeah.
And, you know, to make a long story short, like I still don't know why I had the cardiac arrest. I've had months and months and months of follow-ups and tests and appointments, and everything looks fine. And some things are just unexplainable, you know, and I believe the devil tried to take me down that day, and I believe that God saved me. And you asked me about my definition of success. It's like how could I not completely surrender my life to God, having almost lost my life? And just the timing of everything, like, leading up to it was just insane. And I was like, this is nothing but, like, divine intervention. And over these past, you know, 9-10 months or so since moving to Austin, like the 8 months since the cardiac arrest happened, I have just continued to have to ask why. But ask why, like, not why is like, why did this happen to me? But, like, okay, like, why did this happen to me? And what can I learn from it? And how can I use my story to, again, like, inspire others? And people ask me, like, aren't you curious about what happened? Like, don't you want to continue? Like, I would be researching everything I can. I'm like, why would I live in the past of, like, something that already happened? Like, I know. And people ask me, are you scared to, like, go out and run again? Are you scared to, like, work out? Are you scared to do all these things? I'm like, no, because I'm so, like, disciplined and intentional about, like, taking care of my body, my mind, my soul now. And I know that, like, as long as I do those, like, I'll be fine. But also, like, it's all in God's plan. And whenever my time is, but I'm gonna live every day with intention versus just, you know, passively going through each day. So I'm just, like, so grateful for the experience. Like, how many people can say that they, like, were dead and they're still here? And less than a year later, like, I'm back and I'm doing what I enjoy doing and honoring God, like, through movement. And I just feel like I owe it to the world to share my story and continue to just keep moving forward.
Oh man, that story gets me every time. I remember when you made an Instagram post about it. This was probably several days after it actually happened. I was literally on the Stairmaster at the gym, and I'm just scrolling Instagram, just trying to get entertained. I see a picture of you in the hospital. I'm like, what just happened? Read the whole caption. I'm just like, and before that, we met in person twice.
Yeah.
But, like, we're in touch, like, consider you like a brother. Like, I'm like, I love this kid. Like, he's a great dude. I'm just like, holy shit, like, that's real. And then you put a podcast out about it shortly after. I remember texting you after. I was like, dude, you made me cry in the gym. I'm like, I'm normally looking for something that'll pump me up, you know, maybe learn something. I'm just like, oh, I need to listen to this one. I'm just, like, mid sets on squat, like, choking up. I'm like, what is he doing to me? Hear it again in person, talking to you. Even a few weeks ago at Thrive, Scott, you know, talking about it got me again. I'm just like, it's so powerful knowing what you went through, overcoming the odds, and now looking at where you are today. Like, not only do you look great, you have energy, but just the impact and, like, the purpose you're living with. You're not living by the victim mentality. And it's so easy for people to do. Like, you were told, sit in the hospital for days. I remember you posting stuff like you could barely go outside. They were feeding you, like, snacks of, like, granola bars. Like, it was terrible nutrition. And I remember also, like, you get home after and you're like, I can't sweat, so I can barely even work out. And I know you as a person that drove you crazy. Like, whether you want to admit it or not, I know you're wanting to be active, and you're like, when can I go do something? How was that mentally for you, of, like, hey, I'm good, I'm living, I'm so grateful for that, but like, what is next?
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard. Like I had a defibrillator like put in my side here,
Yeah.
so if anything, if that was to ever happen again, like if my heart rate would just like go too low or spike like way too high, it'll like give me a shock in my heart and, you know, hopefully save my life.
Yeah.
Man, it was really tough. Like my mom was there with me for a couple days after too, and just helping me get back to life. And, you know, I was so weak on my left side. The surgery was so intense that I couldn't carry anything more than like 5 pounds in my left arm. So she was helping me just drive and, you know, make my bed and like
Your mom's a saint.
Absolute saint, man. But like I knew I couldn't do anything physically. Luckily, I was staying with my buddy. I didn't even have an apartment. I didn't even have a house yet. I didn't have a permanent residence yet. I was staying with my buddy in his apartment, and he was in Costa Rica at the time. So like he had an apartment complex, and thank God he did, because there was a treadmill in like the little gym there with air conditioning, so I could at least like pop on the treadmill and just walk.
Yeah.
And so like there were 2 treadmills, and my mom and I just like walked on the treadmill for like as long as we could. You know, we'd do like 30 minutes and take a break, and a couple hours later come back, do another 30 minutes. But like I knew that like I had to keep moving forward, and like I had to do some sort of like movement just to give me that like sense of like accomplishment. And that was all I could do. Like I couldn't even really like stretch. I couldn't like bend over. I couldn't stretch. I couldn't do mobility. I couldn't do like squats or anything like that. So just for a while, a couple weeks, I just walk. You know, just walk, and, you know, eventually you start to be able to, okay, I can do a little bit of mobility. I can do a couple air squats. Like I couldn't do a push up for like a couple months after, but I really just focused on my mental and spiritual health at that point. So I obviously had a lot more time on my hands because I wasn't like training or working out. So I was sleeping a lot, like, which was great. It was, you know, before then I was like, not sleeping much, and even in the hospital, like people coming in and out, taking your vitals like every couple hours. But I was doing like, I was meditating, I was praying, I was journaling. I was just like trying to be present, trying to just make sense of certain things. And it was really difficult, man, because a lot of my social interaction was around fitness too. Like Austin's it's a busy city, man. Everybody's doing stuff, and like I would look forward to like the run clubs that I was a part of, and, you know, having my lifting buddies and just going for walks with people, or like a lot of my social interaction was through fitness events and meetups, and I just felt very isolated because, again, it was August in Austin, and I'm not allowed to go outside. I can't sweat for a couple weeks. So I was like, what do I even do? I can't even like I can't even go outside. I can't go out to eat unless it's inside. So it was very difficult, and I felt very isolated. But I knew that it was only temporary, because I could see myself improving like day after day, after day after day. And it's just a little bit, but, you know, 1% better every day. And all that was to say was like in that season of like, okay, well, I'm not in control of like what I can do from a physical standpoint. What I can do is like prioritize the other areas of my life that are also just as important, and that's like mental and spiritual well-being too.
Yeah, I love that. I know we're coming up on our time. I want to ask you 2 more questions I ask every guest. First one being, what is one thing that you believe in that most people would disagree with you on?
I believe in that most people would disagree with me on. I actually had this like a week or so ago. I put it in like my broadcast channel on Instagram, and I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, I said, this might be like a little bit of a hot take, but like I don't think that like anxiety or depression is something that should be like praised, or like, you know, like this is normal, like it's okay, like it's almost like celebrated. Like why aren't we doing things to help people like get rid of those feelings? Because that they are, like, when you're feeling, does one person have more anxiety or feelings of depression than another person? Absolutely. But I think that it's more of a problem of, like, again, purpose and direction. And, you know, our school system, our education system is just like a mess. And like, we grow up and it's like, okay, yeah, get the good grades, go to the good college, like major in the thing that's going to make you the most money. And, you know, then you're going to be happy. And it's always like, and then you'll be happy, and then you'll be happy, and then you'll be fulfilled, and then you'll be this, and then you'll be that. And it just never comes. And so, like, I believe that and people may disagree with me on this, is like, we need to, like, stop praising those things, stop normalizing them, and come up with a way of, like, hey, let's figure out how to have like a class on finding your purpose. Because I had a class like that in college, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so, like, let's build curriculums surrounding by that. Like, let's teach kids that, like, there are healthier ways to deal with these feelings of anxiety and depression, and teach them how to use their smartphones in a healthier manner. Don't, like, demonize them. And, like, let's just teach. Like, let's teach things that actually matter, things that are actually going on in life, because technology is always going to be here, and it's only going to keep advancing. So it's either we learn how to live with it, or we let it control us, like we are currently doing. So might not be the answer you were expecting, but that was that's what's been on my heart right now. Because I was there. Like, I was that person who felt, I was like, oh, do I have anxiety? Do I have depression? Then you start repeating that to yourself, and you just believe that, and then you can never break that mold, and you can never break that cycle. So we have to go back, and we have to recondition our subconscious minds to think, like, no, I have this feeling right now, just like, you know, joy, happiness, peace. Like, those are all, you're not them 100% of the time. You know, I'm not tired 100%. I'm tired. It's like sometimes, and I'm really joyful sometimes, and I'm, you know, a little bit anxious sometimes. But there's things that I do to get back to base.
Yeah, and it's a dangerous cycle, because misery loves company. So the more you embrace that and tell people, the more you go down that path.
No doubt.
It's a scary thought.
No doubt.
Yeah. Last question for you. For the person listening to this that is on the track to success, they have this dream in mind, they just don't know how to get there. What is one piece of advice you'd leave that person with?
Faith is spelled R-I-S-K. And this is something that Scott told me recently, and I thought that resonated with me a lot. Because you have to have faith to take those risks, and you're never going to get to where you want to be in life unless you're willing to take those risks. But having those risks backed by faith means that even if you fail, you're still going to land on your feet, and you're always going to get another shot, right? Like, I don't care how old you are, it's never too late to bet on yourself. Because life was not meant to just work 50 hours a week, escape from it on the weekends, retire at 65, and then, you know, just pass away. Like, life was meant to be lived. And it's like, don't try to make a living, try to make a life. You know, and it's might be cliche to say, but, you know, you're going to be so much happier doing something you love, and even if you're making less money than you are if you're making a ton of money doing something you hate. Like, my mom started her own business at like 47 years old. It was 47 years of trying to figure it out, and she'll tell you she's still trying to figure it out. I'm still figuring it out. We're all still figuring it out. So seeing her like jump into entrepreneurship and start her own business, and like just see like her life completely change at 47, seeing you completely dive into this work that you're doing right now, bro, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Like, I'm so proud of you, dude. And I can just see the joy and the fulfillment, and like, I know it probably wasn't easy to just like go all in on this thing, but I never have, I don't have any doubts that like you're just continue to grow because you're showing up.
Thank you.
Every single day and you're doing the thing. So I would just say to people like, it's never too late to bet on yourself, and you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the world, and you owe it to God to do that thing.
Yes. Push all the chips in. I love it. That's beautiful advice to end us off with. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, Dominic Fusco on Instagram, the Pure Ambition podcast.
Yo, real quick.
Yes.
Before me, like, give this man, it takes 2 seconds to leave a 5-star rating review. Yeah. Literally 5 seconds. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, like. If you're on Spotify, Apple, all you have to do is press that button. And this man grinds so much, and he's got an incredible message. The least you can do, if you made it this far, is hit that like button, give him a 5-star rating and review, because he's doing great things. So
I appreciate it, brother.
Of course.
Means a lot. Thank you. But yeah, to give you your spotlight, Dominic Fusco on Instagram, Pure Ambition podcast, consistently crushing in-person interviews. Also the UpSpace app, you got a very exciting new venture with that. So
Squad Up app.
Yeah, Squad Up app. Everybody follow him. Everything's going to be posted on his social, and getting more into YouTube. So everybody follow and subscribe on YouTube. Dom, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining.
Dude, I love you, bro. Appreciate you.
Love you too, bro. Fuck yeah.